He came to her door on a Tuesday, hat in hand and jaw set like a man who had already argued himself into something he wasn't entirely proud of. Edith Pell answered before he could knock a second time. She had been expecting no one, and the sight of Beckett Lyle on her narrow front step, tall, broad, smelling of horse and cedar, was enough to make her grip the doorframe. "Miss Pell," he didn't waste time. "I've a proposal for you, a business arrangement more accurately." She studied him. She had seen Beckett Lyle in town before. Everyone had. Son of Harlon Lyle, who owned the largest cattle operation in 3 counties and made sure every soul within riding distance knew it. Beckett had his father's height and none of his softness. "You'd better come in," she said. He stepped inside her small rented room, took in the spools of thread and the half-finished dress on the dummy in the corner, and seemed to reassess something. She let him look. She was not ashamed of her work. Sewing had kept her fed when nothing else would. "My father," Beckett said, turning back to her, "has a will, a legal document designed to ensure I marry a woman of his choosing, one with land, connections, a name that means something to men like him. If I don't comply by my 35th birthday, the ranch and everything on it passes to my cousin in Colorado." He paused. "I turn 35 in 6 weeks. "And your father's chosen woman?" Edith asked. "Miss Calloway, 16 years old and more interested in her hair ribbons than in cattle." He said it without resentment, only the flat exhaustion of a man who had been maneuvering around this problem for too long. "I will not do it." "So you need a wife your father will hate." Something shifted in his expression, something that might have been respect if he'd known her long enough to offer it. "Yes." Edith was quiet for a moment. She was 32 years old, with $11 to her name and a landlord losing patience. She was not a woman who dressed her circumstances in prettier words than they deserved. "What would I receive?" she asked. "A roof that doesn't leak. A wage, real wages paid to you directly. My name, for whatever it's worth, and the protection that comes with it. I won't trouble you. You'd have your own room, your own time, your own work if you choose to continue it." He looked at her steadily. "I'm not offering romance, Miss Pell. I'm offering a fair arrangement." She considered him carefully, the set of his shoulders, the tired lines around his eyes, the hat he had not put back on. A man in a corner, same as she was. At least he was honest about it. "All right," she said. "I'll marry you." He blinked. She thought he had expected more argument. "You're sure?" he said. "I made my decision. Don't second-guess it for me." He almost smiled. It was very brief, barely a thing, but she caught it. They married 4 days later in the county clerk's office. The clerk looked bored. Beckett was stoic. Edith wore her best dress, which happened to be the one she'd just finished for a customer who never came to collect it. She figured that evened something out in the great ledger of things. Perf. The Lyle Ranch outside Greywater was larger than she'd imagined. The main house had good bones, solid timber, wide windows, a kitchen with 2 ovens. It also had a decade of bachelor neglect. Edith did not comment. She simply started cleaning. Beckett watched her from the doorway the first morning, coffee cup in hand. "You don't have to do that." "I know," she said, and kept going. He left. He came back at noon to find the front room transformed. A pot of soup on the stove, and Edith at the table with her sewing spread across one half, and his neglected ranch ledgers on the other. "You looked at my books," he said. "You had an error in last October's column. I corrected it." She didn't look up. "And November, and the September before that." A long silence. "Thank you," he said at last. She did look up then. He seemed surprised by his own gratitude, as if it had slipped out before he could reconsider it. She nodded once and returned to her work. It went like that for 2 weeks. Careful, quiet. 2 people moving around each other in a house that was slowly becoming less of a bachelor's hollow and more of a place where someone lived. He left meals when he came in early from the range. She left coffee warm on the stove before dawn. Neither of them commented on these small courtesies. They simply continued. Then one evening she was hemming a shirt by lamplight when the lamp guttered low. She reached for the oil tin at the same moment he did, and their hands met on the handle. Neither of them moved. "Sorry," he said. "Don't be," she said. He sat down across from her then, instead of retreating to his study. He watched her work for a moment. She let him. "You're not what I expected," he said finally. "What did you expect?" "Someone desperate, grateful, easy to ignore." Edith set down her work and looked at him directly. "I am a little desperate," she said, "but I don't tend toward grateful for things I've earned, and I've never been easy to ignore. I just don't push." He looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Something in his face was doing complicated work, the kind of internal shifting a man does when the story, he told himself, no longer quite fits. "No," he agreed, "you don't." She picked up her hemming. He stayed at the table another hour reading. It was the most comfortable evening they'd had. Harlon Lyle arrived on a Thursday with no warning, which told Edith everything she needed to know about him. She was in the yard hanging laundry when the wagon pulled up. He was large, not tall like Beckett, but wide with old authority, the kind of man who had never once in his life been told to wait. He looked at her the way he might look at an item he hadn't ordered and didn't want. "You must be the seamstress," he said. "I'm Mrs. Lyle," Edith said. His face went a dark and unpleasant color. Beckett had heard the wagon. He came out of the barn unhurried, wiping his hands on a rag, and put himself beside Edith before his father could draw another breath. Just there, at her side, she felt the steadiness of him. "Father." "This is a joke," Harlon said. "You married a penniless seems to make a point. Wait, I've spoken to my attorney. The marriage can be challenged. You barely know this woman." "I know her," Beckett said. 6 weeks. "I know she's the most capable person on this property, myself included. I know she corrected 3 years of my bookkeeping errors in an afternoon and never once made me feel small for it. I know she's never asked for more than I offered, and she's given me considerably more than I deserved." His voice was even, flat, the way still water looks before it shows you how deep it runs. "If you move against her, if you challenge what she has here, I will sign the ranch over to you willingly and walk off this land with nothing but her." Harlon stared at him. "You'd throw away everything your grandfather built?" "I'd throw away the parts that required marrying a child to keep them." Beckett did not raise his voice. "Challenge the marriage if you choose. You'll lose. And you'll lose me along with it." Harlon looked at Edith then, as if expecting her to flinch or look away. She met his gaze with the patience of a woman who had been managing difficult men her whole life. She had survived harder than his stare. He left without another word. The wagon raised a long dust cloud going down the drive and was gone. Beckett stood very still. Edith realized her hands were trembling, just slightly, the aftermath of held steadiness. She pressed them flat against her skirt. "You didn't have to do that," she said, quieter than she intended. He turned to look at her. His hat was in his hand. She had noticed, over these weeks, that he held his hat when he was speaking something true. "I know," he said. "I wanted to." She looked at him, really looked, the way she hadn't let herself before now. He looked back without turning away. "Beckett," she said carefully, "what is this? What are we doing?" "I think," he said, "we are becoming something I did not plan for and cannot imagine undoing." The trembling in her hands had quieted. She studied him, his tired eyes, the crease at the corner of his mouth that appeared when he was holding something back, the hat he still hadn't put on. "You married me to spite your father," she said. "I did." "And now?" He was quiet for a beat, not the silence of a man stalling, but of a man selecting exactly the right words. She had come to understand that this was what he did when something mattered to him. "Now I wake in the mornings," he said, "and the first thing I think is whether you've already had your coffee, whether I might sit with you while you have it." Something settled in her chest that had been untethered for a very long time. "I usually have it early," she said. "I know," he said. "I've been getting up earlier." She took a step toward him. He did not move away. She put her hand on his arm, and he covered it with his own, and for a long moment they simply stood together in the yard of the Lyle ranch, in the warm grey-water morning, while the dust from his father's wagon finished settling and something far more lasting took its place. "I would do it again," he said quietly. "Marry you. Not for the spite. I didn't know what I was doing yet, the first time. But I would do it knowing. Every morning I would choose you." She leaned her head against his shoulder. He went very still, the way a man does when he is afraid to break something rare. "Then I suppose," she said, "you'd better keep getting up early."